All right, you guys, April 30th today, and I'm kind of getting you ready for Lab 10. So the first thing I want to do is just talk about what we're going to expect in Lab 10, and then I'm going to walk you through some code a little bit. So it says, this lab gives you a chance to practice defining and calling a function. So you guys have done a lot with functions already. In this lab, you will write a function that computes how much a payment is on a loan, given the term, interest rate, and initial amount. Much of the web page is already crafted for you, and I'll show you what's already been given to you. In what follows, notice how things are named so that I can use variables. The formula for computing the monthly payment of a loan of P dollars at a given annual percentage rate, or APR, for n months is given by this formula. Okay? R, and then 1 plus R raised to the NP, all over 1 plus R to the N minus 1. So R is the annual percentage rate that the person's going to put in divided by 1200. So you need to calculate that at some point in there, or maybe it's already done for you. We'll see. The monthly interest rate is in computational form, right? The monthly payment assumes that interest is compounded monthly on the unpaid balance. Consider the following example in which $1,000 is borrowed at 5.1% annual interest rate for 12 months. So your P is $1,000. Your APR is 5.1%, 0.05. You're just going to divide by 1,200 to take care of that decimal. And then N is 12, meaning we're going to compound it monthly. Okay? So, move up here a little bit. So your R then is that APR divided by 1,200. Case 1,000 divided by 1,200. Or 5.1 divided by 1,200. It ends up being 0.00425. Okay, so at some point that needs to be calculated, right? So 0.00425, and then remember this was 1 plus R, so 1.00425 raised to the 12th, to the N, and then times 1,000 times your P again. Okay, all over 1 plus R again to the 12th, and then minus 1. You get $85.65. That's how much you'd have to pay every month. Okay, rounded to the nearest penny, so you can talk about that a little bit. So here's what you guys are going to need to do. So the payment function. Code a JavaScript function named payment that will calculate the monthly payment for a loan using the formula described above. The function must have 3 parameters. Okay, and I'm going to talk about a parameter in a little bit. Right now, our functions that we've created in the past have been void functions. They haven't expected anything to come to them. They haven't returned a value. So I'm going to have to talk a little bit about what that is. The principal amount of the loan, the annual percentage rate of interest, and the number of months payments will be made. Because all 3 of those are required for the calculation. Okay, the function must return the payment amount. All variables used in the function must be declared in the function using var statements. Okay, here are a few hints. Look at the source code for the diagonals program. This is a great opportunity to practice the problem-solving technique for dividing the problem into subproblems. Look for ways to compute small parts of the formula above to raise a number to a power. Remember, that's math.pow. Okay. Etc. Okay, so I'm gonna take you into some code right now. Okay, where did it go? There we go. I'm gonna maximize this one. Let's get in there for a sec here. Okay, so take a look at this one with me for a second here, you guys. Okay, so there's this function called calculate payment that's already been created for you. This isn't anything you need to fix. Okay, so it's going to go retrieve the principal box. So at some point, if I look, I'm going to go down a little bit farther for you guys. There's going to be a text box called print box. They're going to type in how much the loan is. APR box, they're going to type in the APR. and months box, the number of months that they intend to pay in the loan. Okay, all of those things are going to be typed in by the user. And then on the on-click, we're gonna go call the calculate payment function, which is up here. Okay, now you'll notice in the calculate payment function, we created a variable called principal, and that simply was document.getElementById printbox.value, and then parse floated, okay? And then the same thing for the APR. We went to the APR box and parse floated that, and then the months box. So we've retrieved that information from the user and saved it as variables already. So that's old hat. You guys have done this before. Now we're going to create a monthly payment variable, and what it does is it calls the payment function. Okay, so notice it says define your function here. That's where you're going to create your function called payment. So there's already one up here. You're going to create your own function down here called payment. It's not very many lines long, you guys. Okay, when I wrote my payment function, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines. 10 lines of code is all you got to write, okay? But what's happening is this function is sending it 3 parameters, principal, APR, and months. And it's like variables being sent to your program. Okay, a little bit different than document.getElementById, because document.getElementById goes and retrieves that information when I want it to. Whereas the parameters like this, your function's going to passively wait for them to be sent to it, okay? So up here, calculate payment has nothing in parentheses. Your function, payment, will have 3 parameters in there. It might be principal, rate, and months. You can put in there whatever you want. It doesn't have to match this, but the order needs to match. The very first thing you create should be equivalent to prin or principal or whatever you want to call it. The second one should be equivalent to APR, and the third one should talk about months. So you're going to, inside of your parentheses, have 3 parameters separated by a variable. So you might have payment and then principal, comma, APR, comma, months, however you want to do that, okay? And so this function right here, this function call is sending it those 3 pieces of information, okay? So you can assume that your function knows what those are. So then you're going to need to create a variable for your interest rate that divides it by 1200, like you saw in the example prior, okay? And then you're going to need to calculate the monthly payment. I made it a little bit easier by breaking it up into 2 parts. I calculated the numerator, so I created a variable var numerator equals, and I just calculated the numerator, var denominator equals, and I calculated the denominator, and then var monthly payment equals, and then that's the numerator divided by the denominator, okay? And you're going to want to test a couple of these with your calculator, make sure the numbers are working out, and then run it a couple times to make sure it works, okay? And then the other thing you have to do at the end of your function, you need to return a value. So you need to type the word return, which is a key word, and then monthly payment, whatever variable you created for your monthly payment, and then a semicolon, because whatever you calculate is going to be sent back to here and then saved as mo payment, okay? And so once you have mo payment in there, the rest of it will be taken care of. So your job, create a function, payment. It's got 3 parameters in parentheses, so inside of your curly braces, you're just going to calculate the monthly payment. And then at the end, you're going to write return monthly payment. That's all you've got to do for this one, okay? As usual, we will have a Google Meet during the lab time for this, so that if you have questions, we can answer the questions at that time. Okay? Good luck, you guys.